Unexpectedly, they arrived with enormous ships glistening with strange metals pierced to their technology was able to throw shadows over large cities due to Earth's atmosphere. Unlike anything that anyone had ever seen, sleek and radiant with a force that defied instantly, explanatory broadcasts started to appear in all languages on all gadget. The alien speaker stood, and the message was unambiguous capitulation or annihilation. Call with a somewhat humanoid shape, but a startlingly strange voice. Calm but brimming with human condescension, it started your time. Your basic existence is beneath us, and you are no longer free as free beings. Will be demolished, and people throughout the world will watch in stunned stillness. Military commanders convened emergency meetings to examine their arsenals and strategy as governments rushed to react. Soon after the initial attempts were thwarted, missiles streaked towards the alien ships. Their fiery the weapons detonated upon impact, and the aliens did not react as the trails sliced the sky. However, there was no obvious damage, and the ships stayed still, their shield briefly flickering before resettling into the alien leader's message about invisibility resumed, but this time it was laced with your weapons are as brittle as your will when you're amused. So don't shame oneself even more. Although the world was shook, humanity wasn't prepared to surrender. Nations used their most advanced technology, including drones, jets, and cyber attacks. However, alien counterattacks were swift, and destructive energy pulses exploded from each attempt that failed. The ships destroying military installations, destroying fleets, and disappearing panic spread like wildfire as the city was evacuated due to the courageous soldiers who had dared to stand in their way. Took refuge even though it didn't seem safe longer. Yet in the midst of the pandemonium, rumors were circulating about a modest individual who had not formally joined the resistance. He possessed no tanks, drones, or military units under his command. But instead he had a single weapon. One was so ridiculously basic that it appeared to be a holdover from a previous period. Sniper rifle. This individual stayed hidden, while going around the fringes of battlegrounds were constantly observing and waiting when he spoke to no one. Declarations, but those who had seen him described an unwavering serenity and assurance that the aliens were unaware of. Such a figure persisted in their relentless march, with their scouts roaming freely and rising to great heights. Machines with weaponry that could level buildings in a matter of seconds frequently demolished without hesitation. Merely stopping to collect samples of the planets, plants, and animals. And the samples that were gathered were nothing more than Earth's military chiefs gathered to claim the trophies of a planet they believed to have conquered before the actual conflict had even started. The alien barriers were impregnable, and once more, hope was fading. Energy weapons outperformed everything humanity could create in terms of speed and lethality. Frustrated, several commanders demanded capitulation, saying we couldn't fight them. According to the general, they are too advanced, and any resistance is met with complete devastation. Others won't concede defeat if we give up now, they argued. We have to figure out whether their shields can block it before we lose everything else. There must be some flaw in everything we've thrown at them, but nobody knew where to begin, so the aliens were unconfident in their supremacy, persisted in broadcasting their derision, and they were astounded by Earth's rudimentary attempts to oppose them. The results of analyses of missiles, tanks, and weapons are consistently straightforward. Even civilians hiding in underground bunkers started to act like incompetent children. Lose hope as word of the unsuccessful counterattacks circulated swiftly. The grim truth that no nation, no advanced weapon or alliance could halt the alien onslaught. However, the sniper studied the invaders from a distance away from the command centers and bunkers. Nothing escaped his notice, not their shields, their equipment, their movements, and he had no words to describe their conceit. His mind was working quietly, radiating from every motion that no one, not even the aliens, could perceive. He did not respond in terror like the terrified commanders and overpowered men did. Instead, he examined and observed patterns that appeared impenetrable, flickered faintly, but others missed the barriers. The flickers were only milliseconds at most as the aliens fired their weapons, yet the sniper was there. Noticed a tiny, very impossible opportunity rather than invincibility. While the globe frantically sought solutions, the exploit was not completely out of reach. He built a weapon that was not advanced by today's standards. Rather, it was the sniper's custom-built gun was meticulously and carefully put together piece by piece. Had spent years refining its design and adjusting its calibration for optimal precision and dependability. A relic, but to him it was an instrument that could reach out and extend his will. He cleaned the weapon, adjusted its sights, and struck with exquisite accuracy over impossibly long distances. and got his ammunition ready, making sure each bullet was expertly balanced for these bullets' steadiness and penetration would appear absurdly archaic to the aliens, who depended on energy weapons. A tiny metal missile appeared to be little more than a pebble against the sophisticated shielding and plasma bursts. Fortress wall, although the shooter was more aware that there was no fortress. The aliens' conceit had blinded them. Without its fissures, no shield, without its defects, they only observed the clear dangers, such as the rockets, tanks, and drones. Didn't think about how one person with a rifle and no other weapons could challenge their power. Why would they think that humanity was too archaic to be a serious threat? They disregarded the sniper, supposing him to be as irrelevant as the guns he was carrying. He didn't have any medals on show on a shelf, so that assumption would be quite costly for them. Public acknowledgement of his abilities, but those who knew him whispered about his unparalleled precision. The type of soldier whose name never made it into official records, but whose acts had a profound impact on every in the tumult of combat. The sniper was a shadow and a ghost in the mission he undertook. However, each shot he fired had an effect that extended much beyond the battlefield. Where his adventure had begun in the harsh, the sniper demonstrated exceptional endurance in the demanding conditions of training camps, where failure was not an option. Discipline and patience he learned to wait while others used brute force. Every task sharpened his instincts more so that he could observe his surroundings and strike when the time was right. A man who could adapt to any environment was developed by missions in urban conflict zones, barren deserts, and lush forests. He flourished in these circumstances, and his abilities weren't limited to, he was a tactician with impeccable marksmanship who knew not only where to shoot but also when and why. It wasn't just about pulling the trigger, involved comprehending the battlefield's dynamics, forecasting movements. And the sniper failed to notice himself, making a single bullet count where S may fail. As a warrior, he was a problem solver who identified the weak points of seemingly invincible systems in despite its modest appearance. The gun was a masterwork, constructed from the ground up with each component carefully chosen. When altered for a particular use, the barrel was precisely machined to remove any distortion. The scope was specially designed to latch onto a target with unmatched clarity and at remarkable distances. Ammunition was equally crucial, with each round being hand-loaded and adjusted for constant precision and made to pierce the hardest materials in spite of the mechanical marvel of his weapon, but it was his intellect that distinguished him. The sniper was deliberately moving towards his craft with the patience of a monk and the accuracy of a scientist. For him, the weapon was an extension of his will, not merely a tool, and he trusted it as if his calculations were accurate. He trusted that this relationship between man and weapon would not let him down, was created through years of painstaking preparation and testing, frequently in isolation. He followed a straightforward rule: stay hidden, attack accurately, and vanish from sight. Of recognition was a shield rather than a burden, and he liked it that way. Being unnamed meant being unexpected, and being unpredictable meant being unbeatable. Gave him the opportunity to concentrate entirely on his work without being sidetracked by other people's expectations. Eager for recognition or acclaim, his successes were evaluated by the results of missions accomplished rather than by awards. His determination was created out of necessity after witnessing years of being saved and dangers neutralized. What recklessness and conceit could cause friends to be lost due to hasty actions and missions jeopardized by overconfidence, the sharpshooter realized that perfection was a must in his profession. For this reason, a single error in judgment, no matter how minor, could spell failure. His attention to detail was so intense that he double-checked everything before acting when the aliens came. The sharpshooter observed their ship's weaponry and shields from a distance, were greater than anything humanity has ever encountered, but he didn't panic or feel amazed. Neither their superiority nor their technology, but rather he observed their patterns, movements, and behaviors, just like he would have with any other target. As governments and military forces rushed to create a defense against an unbeatable foe, he saw a conundrum that needed to be solved. Defense. The sniper operated in secret. He didn't reveal his intentions or look for his perception of the situation was instinctual, and he was aware that immediate approval wasn't his style. Conflict would undoubtedly result in defeat. The aliens had made the grave error of underestimating humanity. They ignored its ability to be creative and adaptable, seeing just the apparent dangers, ignoring the possibilities of people like him. The sniper's planning was as methodical as it was quietly. He checked his supplies to make sure all of the equipment was in his firearm was in flawless shape. The scope was recalibrated. and he meticulously examined the ammunition before picking his vantage points. Picking spots that provided every choice he made about concealment and the best angles of attack was informed by he was solely focused on precision and wasn't motivated by a desire for fame or retribution. His motivation was straightforward. He had a strong, unwavering belief in the worth of his home, the Earth, despite all of its imperfections. Even those who had disregarded or ignored him were worth defending. Worth preserving this conviction helped him realize that he didn't require directives or money. Method, his goal was crystal clear: identify the weakness, take advantage of it, and, unlike those who served on the front lines, he was able to give humanity a fighting chance by consequently. He saw the alien invasion as a set of issues that needed to be resolved rather than a powerful force. His weapons, shields, and haughtiness were all obstacles rather than insurmountable, and his confidence wasn't he was born of HFYs, but he had experience overcoming insurmountable obstacles. Although the stakes were bigger, the sniper's biggest strength remained the same, and they won this time. Was not his gun prowess, but rather his patience while others hurried to act. He waited because he knew that time was crucial. Crucial as accuracy, because a shot that is fired too soon or too late could destroy everything. His edge was his patience, which distinguished him from both humans and aliens. The latter of whom had all their modern technology couldn't have predicted someone like him because they were too preoccupied with their own dominance to acknowledge the silent threat that loomed in the background as everyone prepared for what appeared to be an inevitable defeat of the sniper. Recognized opportunity rather than despair. The aliens' weakness was their confidence. Heal a weakness they were unaware they had, and he would take use of it instead of. With brute force, but maintaining the same level of accuracy and focus that had characterized his career in the quiet of he was prepared, and he was positive they wouldn't see him coming. With unwavering confidence, the aliens launched their campaign, sending troops down to Earth with advanced machines and weaponry intended for total control of Earth's military forces were tested right away and resulting in catastrophic tanks and jets. Humanity's most dependable instruments in an instant, missiles directed at their ships disappeared in flashes of light, and conflict was reduced to scrap metal. Establishing contact, nothing appeared to be able to get past their shields and defenses. Demoralized and confused Earth's soldiers by absorbing or deflecting every attack. Humanity's attempts to the broadcast resumed with extraterrestrial officials mocking their technology, which only served to increase the aliens' mockery. They publicly examined human weapons, pointing out their ineffectiveness and lack of to them. Earth's resistance was merely a little annoyance, a pointless exercise, and a sign of sophistication. Despite their superior technology, they didn't take humanity into consideration, and their hubris was the only thing that could match their disdain. A significant danger, and their broadcasts served as a purposeful demonstration of their invulnerability as the aliens methodically dismantled vital components as the world battled to reorganize. Major cities' infrastructure was paralyzed by the destruction of communication networks and electrical systems. Their scouts readily neutralized any efforts at retribution with their highly advanced drones and robotic gadgets. Aliens' ground forces started to show up, indicating the start of the next stage of their mission. Earth's subjugation was the result of a systematic alien plan that gave military installations destroying organized resistance on Earth before focusing on civilian people, avoided needless devastation they weren't interested in, even though they had a tremendous amount of firepower. Destroying humanity completely because they desired subordination in whatever they did was created to emphasize the pointlessness of opposition. Their strategy was well thought out, and their confidence remained unshaken. The remnants of humanity strove to find a way out of this catastrophe. Hours of combat video were examined by tactical specialists in an effort to find trends or weaknesses in the extraterrestrial technology. Scientists and engineers put out endless effort to reverse engineer extraterrestrial elements recovered from combat zones. The aliens' technology remained unbreakable despite these efforts, and their shields were invincible to morale and all sorts of attacks was at an all-time low, and for many, there seemed to be no hope. The extraterrestrial shields were their greatest advantage, making them seem like a faraway memory. Untouchable, these energy barriers were made to resist thermal and electromagnetic attacks in addition to physical ones. Energy and attempts to use concentrated firepower to overwhelm the shields had failed miserably, leading to catastrophic each time the shields were hit. There was a small ripple that indicated energy transfer, but no human weapons may take advantage of this weakness. The aliens' mobility and shields weren't the only thing that presented an issue. adaptability made sure that any plan humanity came up with was quickly outmoded by the alien forces. The leaders of advanced Earth were confronted with the sobering fact that coordinated strikes were no longer a possibility for conventional warfare. Desperation led to unconventional measures, which were previously the cornerstone of military strategy. However, even these were ineffective because the aliens mimicked every action they technological supremacy that enabled them to defeat any strategy. Since they had thoroughly examined humanity and comprehended its dependence, they didn't expect finesse based on overwhelming numbers and brute power, or the might of a single well-timed shot. The sniper was still unknown. Aspect, operating in silence and watching from a distance as governments and militaries engaged in direct combat with alien forces. Orders or allegiance to a particular nation did not define his function, and desperation did not drive his acts. However, he noticed trends by closely examining the circumstances where others perceived an unbeatable foe, noting the energy spikes that accompany their weapon discharges, the timing of the shield's flickers, and the spaces in their formations. The aliens' blind point was their conceit, which caused them to reject anything they thought primitive or unimportant. They assumed that their technology was unfailing and that their shields made them touchable. They had fought organized forces, but they hadn't taken into consideration someone working outside the sniper's strategy was different from what they had expected. He didn't depend on overwhelming firepower or intricate machinery. His tactic was to precisely take advantage of milliseconds of weakness that no other human weapon could. The sniper's initial motion was intentional. He wasn't testing he had already determined his defenses and weaknesses. Therefore, the shot was computed to determine wind humidity even at the smallest changeable distance, curve of the globe, and it wasn't directed at their machinery or weaponry. The bullet was aimed towards the dimly visible emitters that produced the energy barriers, which served as the source of their shields. A tiny metal object driven by gunpowder, rudimentary by extraterrestrial standards. However, it was sufficient that the initial strike just damaged the emitter rather than destroying it. For a minute, the shield faltered and flared more violently than before. The aliens responded instantly, and their machines looked around for the attack's origin, but they weren't able to when the second shot was fired. The sniper had already relocated and blended in with his surroundings. Soon after, the shield completely crumbled while being pointed at a different emitter. When the alien apparatus was initially seen, panic swept through the ranks of the aliens. Their shields had been their greatest strength, and when they became vulnerable for the first time, their leaders rushed to regain power, putting more scouts into action and concentrating more on identifying the perpetrator. Because they couldn't understand how such a breach had happened, their defenses were meant to be impenetrable, and their technology was supposed to be perfect. The notion that it was unthinkable to them that a person could take advantage of such a weakness. The sniper didn't celebrate his achievement. Instead, he didn't attack randomly. Instead, he was concentrated and took advantage of the pandemonium. Each shot was purposefully focusing on important elements and generating the most disruption with the least amount of work. His precision wasn't only evidence of his talent, but a deliberate attempt to avoid detection at the time when the aliens discovered a possible attack source. He had already moved, and was prepared for the next one. The aliens had once lost their shields due to their conceit. Thought to be invincible were now a burden since their incapacity to adjust to non-traditional strategies had revealed that the sniper's actions were not only a blow to their forces, but also a challenge to their unidentified weakness. For the first time, their sense of superiority compelled them to face the possibility that their invasion wasn't as unstoppable as they had thought. Despite their technical superiority, the aliens discovered them to be elves. For the first time, their confidence, which had been their strength, turned into a vulnerability in a new situation. When their shields failed and their formations disintegrated, their forces faced an uncontested dominance was called into question, and their efforts to identify the cause of the disturbance only made their bewilderment machines worse. Despite having sophisticated scanning equipment, they were unable to locate the sniper, leaving them exposed and reactive. But instead of being strategic, the shooter didn't depend on his adversaries. He knew that the aliens were not calculating every action he made. Invincible, but it took timing and accuracy for him to defeat them. Attacked their shield emitters, concentrating on components they believed were important to damage. And essential elements, he successfully negated their technological advantages. His success wasn't based on luck, but realizing that the barriers that shielded them were also a source of failure, and their overconfidence in this technology made them predictable. And the sniper's disruption had a domino effect. The aliens rushed to regain control as a vital unit's shields collapsed, but the damage had already been done. This change in dynamics exposed ground forces and made their machines susceptible to even the most basic weaponry. As Earth's dispersed armed forces noticed the gaps in the aliens' defenses, human forces started to the rally, motivated by the surprising development. Organized strikes earlier there was now a prospect for feudal triumph. This wasn't because of brute force. But humanity had always flourished under pressure, figuring out how to turn even in the most dire situations. The snipers' actions had brought to light an important fact about the extraterrestrial after realizing that their strength was also their weakness. Military commanders worldwide started putting new tactics that concentrate on turning off shield systems instead of directly tactical forces that were sent with specific goals to target transmitters and other vital systems found by analyzing the alien sniper success responses with heightened hostility. They made relentless attempts to regain control by sending out more sophisticated troops and up their attacks, but their behavior made it clear that they were ill-prepared for a protracted battle. Their decisive early lead had been based on swift dominance and intimidation, something they hadn't expected. Resistance of this kind, their effectiveness declined as the conflict dragged on. Once precise and commanding, their actions started to exhibit symptoms of strain, which they had misjudged. Despite the opponent's tenacity and resourcefulness throughout this transition, the sharpshooter kept working. His presence remained a mystery, a shadow that appeared out of nowhere and vanished before the adversary could react. He interfered with vital systems, eliminating important targets that rendered every shot in the extraterrestrial operations was deliberate and not intended to cause mayhem. However, by destroying the cornerstones of their plan, his accuracy compelled the aliens to refocus their resources and focus. The humans took advantage of the fact that the aliens had diminished their capacity to sustain power on a greater scale. Depended on homogeneity and greater technology, humanity adjusted with ingenuity, and unpredictable soldiers used guerrilla warfare, taking advantage of the terrain and deceit. Engineers civilians also contributed by organizing resistance activities and repurposing alien technology into homemade weapons, supporting military operations that the alien invaders are so used to controlling by brute force found it difficult to adjust to this new, disjointed strategy. The sniper's role became iconic, but his identity was kept a secret. His deeds motivated his achievement wasn't merely a tactical one, it was a manifestation of the unity and resolve that had been lacking since the invasion started. It served as a morale boost, reminding humanity that it is capable of conquering even the most formidable obstacles. Although the veracity of the accounts of his deeds varied, they circulated swiftly. Their influence was indisputable. He became a symbol and a frontman. For the aliens, this was more than just a tactical loss because of their perseverance and optimism in the face of overwhelming hardship. They had entered the conflict, which profoundly challenged their belief that humans are a lower species. Anticipating a simple victory and dismissing their rivals as incapable of significant resistance, they now had to face the fact that humanity weren't merely surviving, they were adjusting and retaliating. This insight created a sense of insecurity inside their ranks. A weakness that grew. The turning point wasn't a single incident, but rather the result of the sniper's precision attacks and daily efforts, paired with human forces' capacity for adaptation, progressively changed the power dynamics that the aliens had previously discovered. When their greatest asset turned into a burden, they put their shields on the defensive and focused their efforts. Their efficiency-focused machines battled against the unpredictable conditions in order to take advantage of their flaws. Unconventional techniques that they hadn't expected were used to counter human tactics, including their advanced weaponry. The conflict turned into an attrition-based test of fortitude and flexibility. As their resources were depleted, the aliens' initial advantage diminished because they had misjudged human potential. For their emphasis on technological dominance had blinded them to innovation and resilience. Each setback they experienced to the importance of strategy, inventiveness, and perseverance was exacerbated by their failure to change swiftly enough to counteract the conflict's shifting dynamics. However, when humanity grew stronger, the sniper's acts caused a wave of creativity and cooperation among scientists and engineers from different countries relentlessly to create new weapons and strategies based on the insights gathered from studying alien technology. Soldiers demoralized, they found new meaning in the battle, motivated by their defenders' tenacity allowed them to help however they could, and the aliens' conceit had united humanity in a manner that no force has ever. And as the tide kept turning, it turned into evident that the aliens had misjudged both Earth's population and its defenses. They were exposed to the characteristics that define humanity because of their concentration on dominance and control. Flexibility, tenacity, and the resolve to struggle for their lives. They had arrived anticipating a simple victory, but discovered that the snipers' activities were the catalyst for the win, but the adversary refused to give up. Belonged to everyone who had made the decision to oppose the war, but after the untouchables were revealed, the aliens' power dynamics changed. Domination based on the presumption of superiority was disintegrating due to their own arrogance. Demonstrated that the snipers' ingenuity and drive could defeat even the most sophisticated technology. Silent and Invisible had demonstrated that one person might alter the trajectory of a conflict, transforming hopelessness into the aliens' retreat started as a sequence of events that transformed hope and vulnerability into strength. Isolated withdrawals, with their troops retreating from strategic locations when opposition had become too formidable, began as a tactical shift but quickly evolved into a popular backup. Their early sense of invincibility had disintegrated as their greatest strength turned out to be a vulnerability that had made them oblivious to the reality of war, and they had miscalculated the effects and humanity's capacity for adaptation. Were apparent in their disorganized attempts to reorganize, and the turning point wasn't limited to their technological failure. Advantage, but they were unable to overcome humanity's tenacity, therefore they expected complete dominance. They thought their superior weapons and shields would make them untouchable. But instead they came into a species that flourished under pressure. A species that found fortitude in hardship and inventiveness when confronted with overwhelming odds that the alien leadership had overlooked the significant effect of a single person's precision strikes, and that they were unable to control the ensuing ripple effect as the aliens withdrew and their communications increased. Their troops, which were formerly self-assured and well-coordinated, now functioned with hesitancy and confusion as they became more and more fragmented. Once replete with derision and declarations of superiority, their broadcasts lost their confidence, had been replaced by uncertainty, with the danger of human revenge shadowing every action they took. Commanders used to having complete control found it difficult to keep everything in order. It was evident that they were unprepared for a protracted battle, much less one in which their own weaknesses were exposed. Humanity took advantage of the fact that the war's momentum had changed completely, and the dispersed resistance that had been about to crumble suddenly became more powerful, with each leaders from all over the world joined together every day to share strategies and intelligence in a manner that hadn't been observed previously. The sniper strategies had turned into a model highlighting the significance of accuracy, endurance, and flexibility. Scientists and engineers labored nonstop to create new strategies to take advantage of the gaps and the alien defenses. Soldiers who were once discouraged and dispersed now battled with newfound vigor, spurred by their successes. The aliens' demise wasn't just due to superior strategy, but their opponents' unwavering resolve. Humanity's capacity to its biggest strength has been demonstrated to be its ability to develop and adapt with the same originality that had previously been written off as archaic and ineffective was now the force that was forcing the aliens to return to home. Although technology had strict boundaries, human ingenuity created limitless possibilities. Despite their technological advances, the aliens were unable to replicate the unpredictable nature of a species that persisted in the aliens left behind a wealth of their technology following their retreat. Even though a large portion of it had been destroyed in combat, what was left became the focus of considerable research by engineers and scientists. Put forth endless effort to reverse engineer the remains in order to uncover lessons that will influence human innovation in the future. This went beyond weapons to include a better comprehension of energy systems, materials, and interstellar travel. The function of the sniper in the conflict changed from being instruments of destruction for the aliens to instruments of advancement for humanity. Became the focus of curiosity and conjecture. His name was unclear. Although he was not seen in person, his influence was evident, and word of his deeds spread, widely expanding into myths that many people believed to be beyond national boundaries and cultural boundaries. He served as a reminder of humanity's tenacity, and that even in the most dire circumstances, one person's deeds may alter the path of history. His ability to strike with intent and precision while staying unseen became a metaphor for the inventiveness and tenacity that characterized the human spirit, even though his identity and legacy were unknown. Was practical. Military strategists researched his techniques and incorporated them into doctrines and training programs. Engineers were intrigued by how such a crude instrument might be modified and tried to duplicate the changes he had made. Could accomplish what sophisticated technologies were unable to, and citizens also found motivation in his tale. He became a symbol of hope. demonstrating that victory was possible despite insurmountable obstacles. More than just a military triumph, the aliens' retreat signaled a shift in humanity's perception of, in ways that few events ever had differed. The conflict itself brought people together. Whatever had separated towns and nations appeared little in the face of a common danger, but this unity persisted. The conflict laid the groundwork for a new age of cooperation and advancement of the lessons learned. Lessons gained throughout the conflict went beyond tactics and technology. They included lessons in teamwork, resiliency, and the strength of human ingenuity. The sniper's contribution to this change was subtly acknowledged by those who recognized the magnitude of his contribution. As the globe celebrated its new discovered courage and solidarity, he stayed in the background, satisfied that his deeds had had an impact. He had no desire for notoriety or distinction. Instead, his goal had always been to ensure that the battle left humanity with a future for his house and its occupants. Stronger yet damaged, it served as a reminder of life's frailty and the significance of alertness. The aliens' conceit had almost cost Earth everything, but it had also exposed the sniper's legacy was one of humanity's greatest assets, not just because use of the wins he helped bring about, but also because his acts were motivated by an attitude that exemplified the importance of accuracy. The traits of endurance and flexibility that would influence the subsequent phase of human history, where the aliens' modern technology and conceit had not been ready for the power they had come across. They hadn't expected the given their opponents' inventiveness, tenacity, and fortitude. Their retreat wasn't not only a lack of strategy, but also an inability to comprehend the essence of the species they were trying to subdue. The triumph of humanity was not just a tactical triumph, but also evidence of the unwavering spirit that characterizes its existence. As the world started to recover and the dust settled, the shooter vanished, leaving no sign of his involvement and the location of his rifle. The weapon that had altered the outcome of the conflict were unclear. However, his presence persisted not as a tangible person, but more as a reminder of what was possible when one individual persisted, demonstrating to the world that even the most formidable foes might be vanquished. Precision, ingenuity, and an unwavering faith in the potential of victory. Rather than brute force, after learning from the conflict, humanity advanced, and the alien invasion, once a sign of despair, became a driving force behind progress. The technology left behind cleared the path for fresh developments, while the solidarity established despite being cloaked in secrecy. The sniper incident became a part of the war that laid the groundwork for a better future. His acts left behind a silent yet potent reminder of the resilience inherent in the human spirit. Transformed the world with a single shot with purposeful precision, rather than with fanfare.